And now from San Diego, California, welcome to the Gentle Jab Show. With a little gentle jab coming from the left and another gentle jab coming from the right. We'll exchange some punches, but they'll be pretty light. We'll debate politics and have a friendly fight. So let's get started.
This is Mitchell Murphy, and welcome to the Gentle Jab Show. On this show, Democrats and Republicans come together to discuss current events around the United States and the world. We have John Stahl with us, and we're honored to have President Trump and President Bill Clinton here with us as well. We're going to be discussing 5 topics. The first one is school safety. Then we will discuss immigration, the shortage of B formula, the midterms, and January 6th. So if you want to kick it off this week, John.
Yeah, I think we had a little bit on the last show. We talked about the school shooting in Uvalde, and we wanted to follow up on that. I think the more facts that came out, the more unprepared the police department and the school district were. I mean, it's a travesty what happened there. They just had a active shooter drill in March. They didn't seem to come prepared with tools to get the door open. I mean, it was just outrageous, sad, and devastating for the families there. I just think it's ridiculous. Now, President Clinton, what do you have to say?
President Clinton, are you there?
I think he's...
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm getting tired of being muted. If it's not my wife, it's somebody else.
Well, you got to watch out for her.
Well, I always got to keep my eyes in the back of my head. But to answer your question, or make a comment rather, is just about the gun control and the terrible tragedy that happened down there in Texas is awful. And I don't know if there's one reason for any of this. I think it's a multitude of things that have come together and a lot of things that need to be discussed. There's a lot of blame that's put on people, and sometimes it's justified and sometimes it's not. But I think really one of the things we should focus on is gun control. I don't understand why anyone would need a semi-automatic guns. I think they should go away. They're not a hunting rifle. They're not something that should be on the street.
Well, I saw where your president, Joe, wants to ban 9mm. Do you realize that the Secret Service that protects you and your wife have 9mm as their service revolver?
Listen, this is baloney. What he's talking about is complete baloney. A gun will not kill anybody unless there's a sick brain behind the gun. What we need to do, in my judgment, is bring back some mental institutions. We need to bring that. I think I said that earlier. I think I said it before in a previous show. But there's a lot of factors involved in here, and there's sick people out there that do these kind of crimes. It's an evil thing that's happening, and we need to do something about it. Taking away guns, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't prove anything.
Well, I think that the stat is that 2 million Americans a year use a firearm to self-defend themselves. And that's what the whole Second Amendment was about. So I think that this left push to ban any kind of weapons, whatever, more restrictions, what they ought to do is get more serious about cracking down on the discipline in schools, the social media stuff. I mean, in Uvalde, 40% of the city's budget goes to the police department. And from what I saw, they were totally ill prepared. Now, President Trump, you did a great job at the NRA. I watched you and I thought that was fantastic. You know, your message was clear. And when you brought Jack Wilson out of the crowd, the guy that shot that guy in the church in Fort Worth, I almost got tears in my eyes thinking that is what the Second Amendment is all about.
Right.
So we can protect
Thank you,
ourselves.
John. What's that, Mitch?
So we can protect ourselves.
We have to protect
absolutely.
ourselves.
You have to be,
Crazy-
in this day and age,
crazy
you
world.
have to be your own first responder. You can't count. If I called the sheriff's department here in San Diego, I'm sure it would take them 15 to 20 minutes to come by here. I mean, it's just getting ridiculous. Now, Mitch, let's cue up Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, on clip 1 and see what he has to say about school safety. I think President Trump laid it out perfectly at the NRA meeting. We need a single point of entry. We need all kinds of things. Let's see what Greg Abbott has to say.
Leaders to form a special legislation committee in the wake of the Robb Elementary School shooting. Abbott outlined topics he wants the committee to consider. They are school safety, mental health, social media, police training, and firearms safety. Abbott is asking for the process to begin immediately. And Governor Abbott has also declared a disaster for the city of Uvalde. The declaration mobilizes state resources, including access to mental health services and a family resource center. A 24/7 hotline has been set up for anyone in the Uvalde community who needs help.
So I think that message is clear. I mean, Democrats want to say that Republicans only want to offer prayers and thoughts. And I think that there's some real serious legislation. I don't know what the school boards and the school districts and the schools and the police departments have been doing since Columbine and Parkland if they haven't got prepared for this type of event. I mean, this guy was hanging around, I heard reports, anywhere 10 to 12 minutes outside the school. He crashed his pickup truck. He was taking pot shots at people at a funeral home. You know, it's just ridiculous what did not happen there. Now, President Trump, I can't wait for the midterms. I think that's going to turn the tide on.
I hope so. I think it will. I think it's going to be very big things are going to happen.
Yeah, I think.
But you know what? I want to address Bill on something.
Go right ahead.
And I told Bill, I'm going to talk right directly to you. This is a result of mental illness. You should know this, Bill. How can a normal person live with Hillary this long?
I don't. I don't. And I might add, I won't.
Yeah, well, I would give him some sort of a medallion for that dedication and that sort of thing. I guess when you put together an arranged marriage or a political marriage, you have to do what you have to do. Now, any other comments on school safety? I think it's clear what Republicans want to do. I'm still waiting for Democrats to get off the dime. I think they blocked, Schumer blocked the bill that was going to enhance school safety just out of spite. So it's ridiculous. Let's move on to immigration.
Could I ask you something, John?
Go right ahead.
I just wanted to ask a question. If y'all are successful and you get rid of Pelosi and you get rid of the Vice President Harris and Joe, I think with my experience, I could fill in till 24.
Well, I think that constitutionally you're ineligible.
But we're going to change that.
Yeah, I think President Trump would be willing to give you some sort of a czar position, maybe, but you'd have to tell us what your qualifications are. I mean, I think.
How about a prison sentence? How about a prison sentence, Bill?
Okay, well, let's move on to immigration.
Well, I had that short clip I was going to share about the
let's see this clip that Mitch has.
So the reason why I wanted to show this clip is because this woman wants to sue Beretta because she was shot. And instead of going after the man that shot her, she wants to go after the gun company itself. And I think it just goes to show how far off we are in this country. Instead of going after the people that are going after the people who are producing the guns instead of the people pulling the trigger.
Victim of the Brooklyn subway shooting is suing a gun manufacturer. Legally, it'll put to the test a new law in New York State aimed at holding the firearms industry accountable. But will it work? CBS 2's Andrea Klein-Thomas with a closer look at the case.
As chaos erupted on the N train in Brooklyn the morning of April 12th, Eileen Sturr was among the victims shot, the bullet entering her buttocks and traveling to her abdomen.
She sustained horrific physical injuries as well as psychological injuries, which she is under treatment for now. Her life will never be the same.
Sturr's attorneys Sanford Rubenstein and Mark Shurian are now suing gun manufacturer Glock Incorporated, maker of the 9mm handgun police say suspect Frank James used in the attack.
We'll have to prove that the marketing efforts of Glock resulted in the creation of a public nuisance which puts guns in the hands of the wrong people.
The lawsuit puts New York General Business Law 898 to the test for the first time. Enacted in 2021 and facing legal challenges of its own, it prohibits the gun industry from endangering the safety or health of the public through the sale, manufacturing, importing, or marketing of a qualified product. But what role does a suspect, as many mental state and advertising exposure have in the law.
It is not one of the things on the checklist of this must be the case in order for you to be held responsible manufacturer.
Attorney Rachel Demarest Gold is not affiliated with this case, but says it could prompt a flurry of other lawsuits.
Whether or not this law is actually going to, in and of itself, be the guillotine to gun violence, I doubt it.
Marketing tactics were the basis of the lawsuit filed by Sandy Hook families against gun maker Remington Arms. And in February, they settled the case for a record $73 million.
I never thought I would be one of those victims.
Reading the words of his client, attorney Sanford Rubenstein hopes this case sets a precedent, making lasting change to the gun industry. Andrea Klein-Thomas, CBS 2 News.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. Are you going to start saying that if someone's killed in a DUI accident that you can go after Budweiser or Chevrolet? I mean, we're going beyond the norm of what's acceptable here. I mean, we have to get this under control. The police have to do more surveillance of these social media sites. Family members, community members have to turn in someone who's not doing the right job. I think President Trump's got it right. We've got to look at the mental side of this. We've got to get that going. Now let's move on to immigration. Joe has no clue what he is doing. I mean, the more I learn about this, fentanyl alone would be a reason to secure and close the border. We cannot allow 2 million people a year to come streaming into this country from well over 100 different countries without any background check. You want to do a background check for guns, but you don't want to do a background check for people, bebopping across the border. Now, President Clinton, I know you didn't have much of an issue with immigration. You had it somewhat under control, but why won't you support Remain in Mexico and the kind of policies that President Trump put in place?
Well, I'll tell you, I think that President Biden, he put it perfect. I thought he put it right. He said that we're putting in immigration judges as much as we can. We're increasing the amount of judges, the immigration judges. And also by admitting immigrants, we are actually helping to secure other borders from other countries and a pathway for dreamers.
Now, where did you get that from? Jen Psaki or this new Pierre press secretary? I mean, that is a bunch of garbage.
Well, I got it from CNN.
You know what this sounds like to me? It sounds like this is not about dreamers. This is more like a nightmare.
Well, if we look at the election results, I saw in Georgia, President Trump, where 37,000 Democrats that had voted in the 2020 election as Democrats voted in the Republican primaries. I think I heard you talk about this in Wyoming, why Democrats are allowed to vote in the Republican primary. We've got to get this squared away. If you're a Democrat, you vote in the Democrat primary. If you're a Republican, you vote in the Republican primary. This crossover nonsense is just another deal that causes the people and the trust in our election system to go badly. Now, Mitch, let's take a look at clip number 2. I'm still very interested in Title 42 and what Joe Biden and his czar, Kamala Harris, are not doing.
The Title 42 pandemic-era deportation policy that was set to expire today will remain in place after a federal judge granted a preliminary injunction on Friday. Arizona and Louisiana led 24 states in challenging the plan to end the restrictions that were first implemented under the Trump administration. Joining me now for more is ABC News contributor Maria Elena Salinas. So, Maria Elena, let's talk about the impact of the judge's ruling now, keeping Title 42 in place. What does that mean?
Well, your question, what is happening now and what the impact is, well, it's a win for conservatives and for the Republican states that suit the government to keep Title 42 in place. And it's also a relief for maybe some vulnerable Democrats that were concerned that if lifting Title 42 created what was perceived as chaos at the border, it could hurt their campaigns in primaries and in the midterm elections. But from a humanitarian point of view, what it means is that it's punishing the thousands of migrants that have been waiting for for years to legally present their asylum cases, and they have the right to do so, and the U.S. has the legal obligation to listen to their cases.
And reality check, as we follow these developments, what is it like now at the border? I mean, we've been covering this for so long, and just the crowds of people, the conditions. How is it at this moment in time?
Well, I was at the border in the last few days, and I visited some shelters. I spoke to some asylum seekers and immigrant advocates. It's not what people describe and what they imagine, that their people are standing there right in the border waiting for it to open. That's not the way it is. A lot of them are following the rules, and they are in these shelters. And I saw families waiting to have their opportunity to present their asylum cases. They, of course, would prefer to stay in their countries, but some of them have been forced to flee because they're facing very dangerous situations at home. You know, every immigrant has a story, and we heard very different stories from each one, but they're all really, dangerous situations that they're facing. What is happening also is that many are being allowed into the country under an exception called humanitarian parole. It's mostly families with young children, elderly, people with medical situations, some victims of crime like sexual crimes. So under the humanitarian parole, they are allowed to enter the country and either go to shelters or reunite with their family members for as long as a year. Then they have to find legal help to present their asylum cases. So there is some relief for a few of these families, but on a limited basis.
Maria Elena Salinas, appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out.
President Trump, I thought you had it under control. We had the lowest illegal immigration in our history. And we've got to get back to that. We cannot allow this fentanyl, human trafficking, child trafficking, all the other stuff that goes on. We don't know who these people are. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. I don't know where they're all going. Are they employable? Do they have job skills? I mean, they don't speak English, a lot of them. So I think we're setting ourselves up for a major problem down the road. President Trump, I can't wait until you watch them Pelosi hand the gavel over to somebody and start to turn this around. We're about 5 months away from the midterms.
Well, I got one word, shellacking.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. Believe me, it's going to be a huge shellacking. It's going to be something like you've never seen before. By the way, I will just close this with the immigration by saying, if you don't have a country without borders, you're not going to have a country. You got to have borders. We're a sovereign nation. Without borders, you don't have a country.
Yeah, that's true. Now let's move on to the baby formula shortage. I mean, talk about shooting yourself in the foot. If the Biden administration, along with all of his cabinet members, spent more time on teaching kids to read, write, and arithmetic, and to teach values in our schools, bring back the Pledge of Allegiance, I think we ought to bring back the draft. We've got to turn this culture. We have a culture problem in this country, and this woke nonsense garbage agenda that the left is pushing instead of focusing on the real issues. Now, baby formula, I've never heard of that in my country. You know, this is outrageous. We're sending off to foreign countries to bring in baby formula. People are running down to Mexico. I mean, it is outrageous. Bill Clinton, how do you possibly defend this continue? I mean, I don't think Kamala Harris or Joe could run a lemonade stand. How do you defend this?
Well, I think if they did, they'd do a heck of a job. I'll just say that. But, you know, I've given this careful consideration. Baby formula, this is a lot of things that have happened here. My answer to part of this is breastfeeding. I want to bring back breastfeeding. It's healthy, it's inexpensive, and they're going to get all the nutrition that they need out of it. It's normal, it's natural, it's the way to go, and I'm a big fan of it, by the way. But we've had some problems with the baby formula. We've got some supply chains that started with the pandemic. That's affected a lot of things, and one of them is the baby formula. The company, the largest company that makes the baby formula, Abbott, I think they make more like 42% of the baby formula than most of all the other companies. They're the largest one, and they can't make this stuff fast enough, because the FDA comes in and they have certain standards to prevent contamination and all these types of things. And so it's frustrating for mothers and parents. But these are some of the reasons. It's not that they weren't making it. They were caused by the supply chain, and they were caused by contamination problems. And they had to get that cleared up and get the go-ahead from the FDA.
Well, I don't think they fast-tracked it. They weren't aware of it. We have thousands of bureaucrats that are supposed to be watching this. We're spending hundreds of millions of dollars a year to kind of stay on top of this. I'm surprised Joe didn't come out and blame. He's got his wheel there where he spins it on who to blame for the different projects. Now, President Trump, that never happened under your administration. We had no basic shortage. Inflation was under control. Gas prices were under $2. I miss you as president. You are still my president. I can't tell anyone that Joe Biden is my president.
Well, we all know what happened on election day, and we also saw what happened with the courts. They wouldn't allow people to count the votes, to tally them up, and do a investigation on the election fraud. But here we go again. Bill's talking. All he talks, they're repeating the same thing. Do you see a pattern here? They mentioned, I heard the other day, they had a whistleblower, was one of them. Well, here's another whistleblower. Remember the whistleblower for the Supreme Court? There was a whistleblower there. What is going on with all these whistleblowers? Okay, I've never heard the term misused so much. So you want to hear misinformation, you're hearing it when they start using excuses like whistleblowers and this type. It's unbelievable.
That's unbelievable. Now, Mitch, let's run clip 3 here on baby formula and get an idea of what is going on and what's being done about it.
The baby formula shortage has gotten worse, now approaching 70% nationwide. This even as Germany, the UK and Australia ship formula to the US. Every state now reports empty shelves, with formula all but impossible to find in many big cities. Here's CBS's Meg Oliver.
Help is on the way. A second delivery from overseas will start to ease the baby formula shortage. The equivalent of about 1 million bottles of formula is headed to hospitals, stores, and families in need.
Good morning. Hello. How are you?
Families like Anna Aguirianos, who comes to this food pantry in New Jersey once a week to pick up formula for her 4-month-old infant, Liana.
It may be this. Okay. Because she's a newborn.
Her daughter was born with 4 heart defects and uses a tube for part of her nutrition. These precious 2 bottles will help her get through another week.
Are you nervous you're going to run out?
Oh, every day. Every day it's very nerve-wracking because we don't know where we're going to find, if we're going to find. So we got everybody, the family, whenever they go shopping, keep an eye for the formula. But all the shelves are empty.
In Massachusetts, Jessica Juliao is dangerously close to running dry for her 3-month-old baby, Gabriel.
I'm searching for formula as we speak.
You're searching for formula right now. How much do you have left?
I have, I want to say a quarter of a small can left.
Like parents across the country, Juliao is desperate.
Panic has set in because he's only 3 months old. He's lactose intolerant. He's very colicky, so I'm reluctant to give him another formula, but at the same time, it's like I have no other choice. What do I do now?
Juliao did not find baby formula that day. Her urgent search continues, as it will for so many other parents across the country. Meg Oliver, CBS News.
I think President Trump had it right at the rallies that he was at this weekend. The whole downfall of this culture and our foreign policy and the supply chain, the whole thing, and this aggressive position out of Russia and China was because of Joe's faulty withdrawal from Afghanistan. The Keystone Cops or the Three Stooges could have planned that better. President Trump, I thought you had that under control. You had a peaceful withdrawal. You told the Ayatollah, don't even think about it. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on what Joe's done to confuse this situation.
Well, if you heard him the other day, he was confused reading the teleprompter. It's getting worse and worse and worse. It's actually quite sad. when you look at it. They really needs to be arrested. It's pretty pathetic. And look, the Democrats have made this mess, and they have nobody to bail them out. Nobody. Harris can't do it. They found out how stupid she is. Can't do it. So they're going to pay a big, big price come November and beyond. That I can tell you.
Yeah, now let's move on to the midterms. I think we're going to see a huge wave. You've had 106, 101, 102, victories with your primary endorsements, and with the shenanigans going on in some of these crossover states, I think you've done an excellent job. I don't know that anyone else in modern political history has a track record like that. I saw these two rallies. I appreciate and applaud your energy and your capability. And when I saw immigrants who flew from San Diego or Los Angeles, from Vietnam and Cambodia, that stood in line for hours to get into your rally and paid their own expenses to get there, that shows you how strong the feeling is. Joe could not get 100 people at the DNC headquarters. I thought you did a great job. Are you planning rallies throughout the whole summer?
We are. We're going to be. We're very, very excited about what's going to happen here in the future. We're gearing up, and we've got a lot of excitement going on. As you can see, a lot of crowds are filing in. I mean, thousands and thousands, as far as the eye can see.
Yeah,
we're going to keep marching. We're keep marching.
It was unbelievable. Now, I want to remind everyone, if you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel, we would appreciate it. We're going to try to do a show every week and keep you up on current events. And I think we've got a good format, so we're going to do that. So if you can, go to our YouTube channel and subscribe and let your friends know about the show. So the midterms are coming up in 5 months. I think Joe, I heard today where Joe is disappointed that he's not getting enough credit for what? I don't know what he wants credit for. I mean, when I look at all the indicators, even Chuck Todd says everything's going the wrong direction and setting up a shellacking, and that's Chuck Todd's word. So I just think that Joe has no clue what's going on. There's no one in the administration that seems to be on top of the thing. And Bill Clinton, I know you want to defend them, so go right ahead.
I'm not defending him at all. I think Joe's done a great job. I mean, I don't know what else you could expect for him to do. He's not responsible for the supply chain or what's going on with Ukraine or all these other things. Things like this, when they happen from time to time throughout history, they domino. It's a ripple effect. And we're going to come out of this. And when we do, we're going to be in good shape.
So when you say Joe's doing a great job, on what topic would you say that he's doing his best job?
I think trying to keep people calm. You know, when you're having a tough time with the economy and all, and by the way, we're not doing that bad, as bad as what you may think it is. I think there's a lot of things that have happened, but I think he's doing a good job. I mean, he's keeping things sound, focused, and he's doing everything that I would do.
So if you work for a living and you're driving a car or a truck to work and around county to get things done, you hear Joe say that this inflation in gas prices is not just transitory. This is a great opportunity to move to electric vehicles and renewable resources. I mean, do you have any confidence in Pete or Kamala to actually get anything done in the next 2 years?
Well, I certainly hope so. We're all quite supportive of them. And, you know, Joe's been around a long, long time. He's not new to this game. So he knows what to do, and he's surrounded by a lot of good people. And I think you're going to see some positive things here going into the midterms.
Well, I think you're a little delusional. I heard today that Joe is getting frustrated that people don't have any confidence in what he says because the White House has to keep walking back his clueless statements that he makes, whether it's on Taiwan or 9mm or gas prices, or, you know, it's just ridiculous. I mean, I heard where he keeps pushing this false narrative about the Constitution never allowed for citizens to have cannons, and it's not absolute. Well, news for Joe, in the Constitution, they authorize private ship owners to use cannons to reprise and the Marquis collect pirates' bounties. So there's been a long history of the Second Amendment supporting our country. The founding fathers did not just come back from a hunting trip. They came back from a war fighting the tyranny as they saw it of the British government, and they wanted independence. So let's move on to January 6th, which always seems to get the Democrats spooled up. Now, I see January 6th as nothing more than a mostly peaceful protest. These words of insurrection and stopping Trump from running and trying to get Marjorie Taylor Greene not to be able to run. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Bill Clinton, do you honestly think that was an insurrection after you watched the riots all for a year and a half in Minneapolis and Portland and in Seattle? Bill Clinton.
Yeah, I do. To answer your question, I do. And I tell you something, all you have to do is look at the kind of people that were charging the Capitol. It looked like a bunch of white rednecks. I mean, it was unbelievable how ignorant some of these people were crashing in. I mean, have you ever heard of a time where the Capitol or any, the White House or anything was attacked and windows broken? And they knew that congressmen and senators and everything were inside. They knew it. They knew because they were instructed by Donald to go in there and cause havoc and be disruptive.
Well, who's to say it wasn't Democrats that were pushing and got actors and other people to go and fake that they were Republicans to act that way just to make Donald Trump look bad?
Yeah.
I never, by the way, for the record, I never told people, I told people to go to the Capitol, yes, to let their voices heard, but I never incited violence or go and break up the place. I never instructed people to do that. And that's why the Senate did not impeach me. The House, they would impeach me for eating waffles. But the Senate saw the real truth and they didn't.
Yeah, I think it was clear that it was a peaceful protest gone wrong. There was only one person murdered. There were no shots fired other than at Ashley Babbitt. And the Democrats are pushing this scenario and this false narrative, much like the Russian hoax, to try to keep Trump from gaining power again. So I think we've had a good show tonight. Any closing thoughts from either of the presidents on anything they've heard or the other person said tonight?
Yeah, I would just say tune out of Fox News. That would be my advice to people. Don't watch this. This is misinformation. You're hearing a lot of misinformation. And look around. Yeah, I know you don't like paying $6 a gallon out in California and that for gas. It's terrible. But it's not because of Joe. It's not because of the things that he's doing. It's Russia's fault. We've had to put a lot of resources there. They cut off oil to us.
Wait a minute. They only supply 3% of the world's oil. Biden shut down the refineries. He shut them down. They're sitting idle right now. People are unemployed. We could be having the California gas tax out there, John, in your state. They could lower it $1.26 a gallon with a stroke or a pen. But that shyster they got as a governor, he could do it tomorrow. They could take care of it, but they won't do it because Absolutely. They want people to suffer. They want people to suffer, and they're going to pay a heavy, heavy price.
Yep, I see Trump leading a red wave in November more than Ronald Reagan. I mean, Jimmy Carter had a tough time in 1976, 78, and Ronald Reagan blew him out. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen again. I can't wait until election night. We've got to get our hands around election integrity, though. I don't like these drop boxes. I don't like these machines. I don't like election month. And I don't know that the Republican Party has done much about that. Now, President Trump, I think you've done a great job, and I know you're working hard.
Well, you know what? One thing that really, really aggravates me, too, is when I hear the term voter suppression. What does that mean? There's no suppression of any votes. That voter suppression, what is wrong with showing an ID? You have to show ID most places to get things done. Why is that racist? Why is that something bad to ask someone to provide and show proof of who you are?
Yeah, the turnout in the primaries in Georgia were larger than anyone in history. And I think that Stacey Abrams is going to go down in flames. And I think that her whole narrative, her false narrative about voter suppression and all this other baloney, this Dropbox stuff has got to stop. We've got to put an end to it now. I don't know what it happens, but we've got to get through these midterms, and we've got to get that gavel, and we've got to put some of this stuff through. So President Clinton, do you have anything that you wanted to add tonight before we close the show?
Well, yeah, I just say that keep your ears open, keep your eyes open, because some of the things that you're hearing and seeing is not real. It's not real at all. And you're going to see that a lot of things that Donald's never going to be satisfied. He still claims that he was mistreated or anything. You can't do that in this country. That's impossible. Even the Supreme Court saw it against him. So he's never going to get over it. It's kind of like somebody I used to live with who can't take defeat. I won't mention her name, but that's how I feel. We're going to be fine. I think we're going to surprise a lot of people at the midterms.
Well, Joe, I mean, who is Joe going to campaign with? Who is going to ask Joe to come and campaign for them in the midterms?
Well, I haven't heard of anybody right yet, but it's early. So I think you'll see that he'll be endorsing people.
It's a pretty short list. Maybe they'll invite him to a safe seat that know that they've got the drop boxes and the ballot harvesting going. So I think this is a good show tonight. I appreciate both presidents being here. Mitch, you have any closing comment?
Yes, I'd just like to say we have the Second Amendment for a reason. This beautiful document that's behind me, the Constitution was created for a reason, and it was protect our God-given rights. We have a right to protect ourselves. We have a right to protect our homes, and we have a right to bear a firearm. And you have to do certain things in order to get a firearm, and you take safety courses. I was raised and taught how to handle a firearm safely, and there's ways to do it, and you can protect your family. And I think that as long as we're getting them away from people who are doing harm or have the intent to do harm, and we start focusing more on treating the society and the community and helping the people who have mental health issues and stop going after the manufacturers, like it's completely backwards. But just my overall point is that we have a God-given right to protect ourselves and to have a means of protecting ourselves. When they originally created the Constitution, it was to protect themselves against the British armies and so that they wouldn't be taken over. And they put those rights in our hands as their descendants, so that we could protect ourselves from being taken over in the future.
I completely agree with you, Mitch. I tell you something, just today, somebody mentioned to me, if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. My answer to that was, if somebody's breaking into your home, you have a right, a God-given right to protect you and your family, whatever means possible.
Absolutely. So it's a great show. Mitch, why don't you close us out, and we'll see everyone next week.
God bless America.
God bless America. Thank you all for joining us this week for Gentle Jabs, and we'll see you next week.